Thank you very much for joining us tonight. So we have an amazing event on energy trends and industry trends in the energy sector. The first part of the event is the panel discussion, and the second part of the event is the pitching session. So the first part will last for 1 hour, and first I will introduce myself, and then the discussion will start. So let me share the screen. So global business development company will help to match leading investors and how potential startups, and our special focus is on cross-border deals. I mean, where investors in the US, startups in Europe, or startups in US, investors in Europe, or whatever. We like such cases, and we like to have a good network and to bring people together. I personally studied in Columbia, in London Business School on the both sides of the ocean. So I love to be connecting the world, I would say. And that's why we have investors from Europe and from the US to exchange and share their views. We also do this event with the support of Gold Ventures Investments. It's our partner. They help us with selections of startups. I will talk about it a bit later. So how do we help startups? We do warm introductions for them to VCs. We help them to do the strategy, the business development strategy, I would say investment relations strategy, like which funds are more suitable for them and how to approach them, how to start communication, how to sell yourself and things like that. Also, I have about 10 years of experience in private equity. I closed the deals for the total amount of more than $500 million. So I also will help startups to structure the deal and to, I would say, negotiate your term sheet. And despite you need to have a local lawyer, still the principles are the same. So we can help with term sheet negotiations. Our partner Gold Ventures Investment, they help us also to get grants from Europe, from European public institutions to help investors to make their investments more profitable. And they also help startups to find new clients and to gain new markets. Here are our investors panel, and here I give the word to Chris, who kindly sorry, this is not the one. I'm sorry. We have this is the one. Just one moment, I need to share the other one. So Chris kindly agreed to help me with this session. So Chris, could you please introduce yourself and start the panel and let investors introduce themselves as well? Thank you so much.
Yeah, hello everybody, and thank you, Elena. We've got a fantastic panel here today, and so for the next sort of 55 minutes or so, we're going to be talking about what's going on in terms of energy and the current trends that are happening. I'm Chris Gentle. I used to be a partner at Deloitte. I'm now a senior advisor to the World Energy Council. If you haven't heard of the World Energy Council, we have membership in 100 countries around the world, and really around the preeminent organization around energy transition. And I think one of the things that's happened with COVID that we've seen is that we've actually done some work and research on this, which shows that we've seen perhaps the biggest shift in history in terms of capital allocation in the last 3 months in energy. So we've run a survey of 61 countries of energy organizations in those countries, and we can see a shift in capex of something between 200 and 400 billion. Obviously that's been particularly in the oil majors, but all across the different energy sectors that's happened. But probably most important for today is actually that when we look at actually how energy companies are actually reallocating investments, they prioritize three things: innovation, R&D, and digitization. Now, what we've seen in energy in the past is basically the big companies have basically been driven everything. Well, what we're seeing now is actually there's a real pivot now to smaller companies around innovation and venture capital. So we've got a fantastic group today to really kind of explore what that might mean in practice about which sectors energy is going to go to, how can this drive energy transformation, and so I'm looking forward to a great discussion with everybody today. So what I'd like to do is just let each member of the panel just kind of introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll go to our kind of first question. So Freerk, if you would like to just kind of do just a kind of a quick kind of 20-second introduction of you, and then we'll kind of go on for each member of the panel. Freerk.
Great, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm working at Rockstart, which is an accelerator and fund investing in early stage startups. One of the main themes that we operate in, but not the only one, is energy. And we focus on the digital enabling technologies in this industry. We've invested in 45 startups over the last 5 years, and we've established almost a new venture fund, which will again invest in up to 50 startups in the next 4 to 5 years, and actually assist them through growth, making use of our ecosystem of experts, industries, and investors.
Great, thank you very much. So I'll just go with what's on the screen. So Konstantinos, could you just kind of do a quick introduction for 20-30 seconds, please?
Yes, hello, Konstantinos Maramenos, and thank you very much for the invitation to be a participant in this panel. I'm working for Brookstreet Equity Partners. We are a London-based growth capital fund investing in asymmetric markets with special emphasis in Southern Eastern Europe and especially Greece. We are focusing on companies in the tech, Industry 4.0 and energy sectors, and have made 3 investments so far in the country. And one of the companies that we have invested, Nanofos, is particularly engaged in the photovoltaic sectors, and I'm looking forward to speak more about it in the future. Looking forward to a fruitful discussion.
Great, thank you. Fernando? Do we have Fernando? Ernst?
Yes, I'm here. I wasn't muted.
You are, sorry. Okay.
So, thanks a lot for the invitation. Great to be here today. So my name is Fernando Sandoval. I am responsible of the Enel Innovation Hub Europe, as we call it. Enel Innovation Hub Europe is the branch of Enel for doing the developing of the relationship with European ecosystems and the scouting of the best European startups able to work with Enel. Enel is a multinational Italian utility. We are one of the largest in Europe, and we are leading the energy transition globally. We do not invest in startups, and this is something I want to make clear from now, and Elena already knew it. So our approach is completely different. It's what is called a corporate venture client. What we want to develop is win-win relationships with the startups. We want them at the end to become suppliers of the group by working with us.
Great, thank you. Ernst?
Hi, my name is Ernst Sack, a partner with Bluebear Capital. We're a venture capital firm here in the US on the West Coast and in Houston, focused on digital technologies across the energy, infrastructure, and climate industries. And we really focus on the earliest revenue stages, typically late seed or Series A, and try to accelerate growth through our strong network of private equity firms and energy operators that want to use digital technologies in their assets.
Yeah, delighted you could join us. Marc from Centrica.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Yeah, this is Marc Sabas. I work for Centrica Ventures, which is a corporate venture capital arm of Centrica. Some of you might know it as British Gas, and in the US it's called Direct Energy. So let's say a US-UK power supplier. And Centrica Ventures focuses on investments, minority investments in energy-related companies. Usually we invest in more or less Series A, sometimes in Series B, We've been running for about almost 3 years now. We've made 12 investments across US, Europe, and Israel, where we have teammates. And our main areas of investment is home energy management, e-mobility, and a little bit of Industry 4.0.
Great, thank you very much. Matthias?
Yeah, hello. Well, I'm not from the panel, I'm a startup. So perhaps later.
Chris, Matthias, thank you. Chris, you may want to follow the
Yeah. Sorry, so Alex?
Hello, my name is Alexander Starchenko. I'm a managing partner of FirstImagine Ventures. It's a London-based venture capital company. We are focused on energy transition technologies in wide meaning, energy, new mobility, energy storage, microgrid management, upgrade of existing solar and wind installations, etc. Our stage, it's a series A and series B. It's first sales of the startups.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Temple?
So I am a managing director of Clean Energy Ventures. We are Boston and Cambridge-based venture fund, early stage venture fund. We invest in any technology that can reduce at least 2.5 gigatons of greenhouse gases between now and 2050. So a very specific mandate, but makes us agnostic to the types of investments we make. So we invest in advanced materials, electronics, hardware, software, innovative business models. We've been investing, we formed in 2008. We initially formed as a private investor syndicate where we were investing our own capital, and then we ended up raising a fund in 2017.
Mm-hmm. Great. Last but not least, Tomas?
Hey folks, so my name is Tomas Kemtys. I'm a partner at Contrarian Ventures. We are an early stage energy tech and e-mobility focused VC fund. We invest all over Europe and Israel. We currently have 15 portfolio companies with active investing, done a few deals during the COVID-19 crisis, and which is continuing, so, and actively looking for new deals. So glad to be here on the panel, and I know some of the folks, Alex, Starchenko, we co-investor in a few companies with FirstImagine, so glad to see you here.
Great, thank you very much indeed. So I opened up by talking about basically the pivotal shift that we've had, maybe the most historical shift in terms of reallocation of capital. The purpose of what we want to do here is really look about what that means in real kind of in terms of investment trends. And I just wondered if I could maybe open up with the first question and actually kind of saying, how are you seeing this happen on the ground? And I don't know whether or not we've got anybody who would like to answer that first in terms of actually seeing that pivotal shift and where capital is going. Maybe Fernando, you could talk from basically being in a big energy company in terms of Enel, as your CEO has talked about some of these big shifts and about what you're doing as a group. Could you just talk very briefly about that in terms of your kind of view about this kind of pivotal shift in capital and its reallocation in order to address energy transition and climate change?
I don't know if I'm the right person to talk about pivotal change in capital's allocation for startups, in the sense of that we do not invest in the startups. But what we are seeing is a fast forward effect of the current situation in energy transition and digitalization of the industry. It seems like there is a common understanding, and there is kind of a we have become more conscious of the necessity of really thriving towards climate change initiatives and decarbonization and so on. So we really need to push forward in these, and seems now that we are now working harder into this purpose. So this means taking into account sustainability, taking into account climate change, taking into account energy transition and decarbonization. And in order to be able to do this, digitalization is a must as well. So these are the kind of things we're working on. As group, just not talking about the startups, but talking about the strategy, there are two major forces that are driving us. One is energy transition in terms and decarbonization in terms of production of energy. We are growing at a rate of about 4 gigawatts per year in terms of new renewable energy. We already have an installed capacity of 46 gigawatts of renewable installed capacity around the world. That is kind of half of the installed capacity that we have. Mm-hmm. And this means bringing lots of technology, lots of digitalization into the construction of these new plants. We cannot use the same methods we were using before to build what we mostly do, that is wind and solar photovoltaic. We need new methods. We are building solar photovoltaic plants of a few hectares of dimension. So it means new methods, it means new ways to control the construction plants. It means new ways of working together to be able to do that. That in terms of energy transition and decarbonization, what comes to production. And then we have decarbonization in terms of the uses of electricity. And that's the other main
I think we lost you.
It's a company that we set up. Maybe a problem with the communication. Do you hear me now?
I'll just move to one of the other guests just while it gets better. Rob, you give me a chance to just introduce yourself. So I apologize for that. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. My name is Robert Neivert. I'm from 500 Startups. We do seed investing. We have about 3,000 companies in portfolio. We do energy and almost anything else. We have about over a dozen funds throughout the world. So we're very broad. We're not specific to this. And we tend to invest very early, oftentimes before revenue.
Yeah. And let me ask you then, so Fernando was just talking there about the big organization in terms of Enel and the acceleration that's taken place. What are you seeing on the ground if you're doing seed? What's COVID done to in terms of the transition in terms of looking for seed? Because some people say that the market dried up a little bit for seed.
Yes.
Is it happening in energy?
Yeah, so for us, it's actually really interesting. I'm going to give two interesting facts. One's called an inversion. There are more A rounds than seed rounds. A large number of VCs are reinvesting in their existing portfolio to ensure it can survive COVID and all the downturns that are happening. So you see a large number of A rounds that are at about the same valuation. So they're basically re-upping to ensure they can survive. What that means, though, is if you haven't raised funds already from an existing VC, it is extremely difficult. The numbers are actually substantially more negative, meaning the probability of closing a round if you do not have one are actually quite a bit lower. So basically, they're doubling down on their ones they have. They're not actually taking a lot of new investments. Most of our forecasts are for this to ease up the beginnings of next year. There was a change in regulation that's now going to allow new investors into VC funds starting in October. I don't know if you know, but the US actually changed a regulatory that allows a large number of retirement funds and other things like that to come into VC funds. We expect that to take about 3 to 4 months before that kicks in. You'll see a large number of funds starting in January, but in the short term, it's actually quite difficult if you haven't already raised funds.
Okay, great. Temple, what would be your view? Because you're at the smaller end of the market in clean technologies, as I understand it. What are you seeing in terms of the result of kind of COVID and the impact in terms of investing?
Well, we're actually closing 2 completely new deals right now, as well as closing 3 financings for our existing portfolio companies. We're trying to be not exploitative, and in fact, I wouldn't say that we have been in any way exploitative for the fact that Rob was saying that there is very little capital out there that's flowing.
Yeah.
That being said, we are finding that we are offering what we would consider in any situation fair terms, and the entrepreneurs and founders and their legal counsel seem to be more accommodating, let's say, than they have been in the past. So that's challenging. But we've also, it's been hard to sit down with these entrepreneurs and say, guys, this revenue growth that you're actually proposing, that your valuation is indexed to, is going to be a lot slower and a lot lower than you anticipate. And just walking them through the logic, and affects everything from not just the sales and the fact that your sales team can't be out there actually making sales if there are their sales dynamic is a direct relationship, but also just the pure development cycle. We're seeing a lot of delays in procurement, particularly if any kind of components that are needing to be outsourced. And that dramatically impacts revenue growth as well. So we're seeing it really kind of across the board, but we're still very active. You know, what's uncomfortable in my 25, 30 years of investing, I've never not broken bread with the CEO of a company I've invested in. And this is the first time we're going to be investing in 2 CEOs that we haven't had the opportunity to meet.
Yeah, different times. Ernst, you're in the US as well. Give us your best story about what's happened in terms of COVID and what it's meant in terms of investing, in terms of a particular example, if you can, not necessarily mentioning names, but actually about how you've made deals happen.
Sure, and I agree very much with Temple. We're seeing for a whole different set of reasons, which is another another panel maybe. There was this big swell of clean tech 2.0 or climate tech funds being raised at the end of 2019, very beginning of 2020. So there are a dozen or more well-capitalized energy-specific early-stage investors, and a lot of generalists are now seeing so much climate change in the headlines that they're realizing that 2006-7's failures do not doom the industry forever. So the capital is there. The challenge is that startups are struggling to meet those metrics that investors look for. As Temple was saying, if COVID is shutting down your conferences and your customer meetings and the procurement processes of your target partners, it's harder to meet those ARR metrics or win those customer logos that catalyze the fundraise round. So if businesses have had momentum going into COVID and are able to show some continuity, and that's been much easier in wind and solar than in oil and gas, if we're talking energy, that has been an advantage. And then in terms of closing deals digitally and remotely, I think many of us are in the same boat. We closed 2 new investments during peak COVID in March and early April. Those were both relationships that we had before the lockdown set in, but we're also very seriously advancing a number of deals that would be entirely digital. In that case, it's important that the founders have experience in the industry, which means they should have a network where we can reference them personally.
Yeah, great, thank you. Thank you. Let's hop back into Europe, and Kostas, maybe you could kind of give us a picture about what you're seeing. We've heard a couple of examples there about deals being done completely on a digital basis, where not necessarily kind of meeting people and putting things together. What are you seeing from a European perspective?
Yeah, not much. Things are not much different in Europe. Again, as Brookstreet, we're close to close a deal related to an energy company. The only thing that I want to underline here regarding energy startups is because we're speaking of really smart people which have come along with ideas that are brilliant, and because energy is the future, they think very high of their valuation of their companies. So it's very hard to sit down, as Temple said, and really agree on specific term sheet that is realistic and can be put forward. I have met numerous people in the space, brilliant, with allow me to say, and capacity to commercialize their ideas. So it's up to us as investors to become trustful partners, build a relationship, and really forge, a partnership that will nurture growth. In every area. And for example, in the last webinar, Elena was hosting people that were speaking about artificial intelligence. In the previous one about software, whatever. And now that it is energy, and when we talk about game-changing industries, you have to expect smart people which do not have a clue of how to commercialize their innovation and need assistance in doing that. And we are putting a lot of effort, rolling up our sleeves to do so. But we are optimistic that out there, brilliant ideas are ready to be invested.
Yeah, great, thank you. Freerk, you were talking about actually you're in the process still of raising capital specifically for deployment in energy and across energy systems. Could you give us a flavor about how that's going and which areas you're hoping to invest in the future?
Definitely. but let me also connect with Kostas,
Sure.
because we're specializing in helping startups in these early stages to find their path to growth.
Yeah, very important.
Co-investing with the likes of you in the later stages. So I think there's room for collaboration there. Then indeed, we're in well-progressed stages of fundraising. Actually, I'm proud to say that we've been able to get a cornerstone investor, being a pension fund, to invest in early stage startups, so pre-seed startups, which is a very uncomfortable zone for them to be in. And the way we've been able to do that is create momentum already early on. So we started this process last year. So we had built that trust already over a longer period of time with this pension fund, but also bringing along some of the private capital. So family office wealth and informal investors that also bring in a similar chunk of money into the fund. And grouping that money in quite a unique setup of very structured pension fund money, which is eager to invest in the early stages as to get access to later stage investments. So it's starting a train of investment along a path, and bringing that together with the entrepreneurial spirited VCs and private wealth parties that do see that the energy system is changing, and there's an opportunity for them to jump in now to become part of the new reality of a energy transition.
So just a question on that. So you managed to sustain that interest, the initial interest from institutional investors, pension funds, through COVID, in order to kind of seal that and bring that money in for a pre-seed type investments, yeah?
Yes, but obviously in general, it's what was been described. Many investors have just been, scratching their heads and taking care of the existing portfolios, and very reluctant to go into something new. So everything which has been happening over the last couple of months with us, also our portfolio companies, already was started way before that, and we see hardly any new movement yet. It's now emerging slowly, but it's been very dead in water for a while.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe I could go to Marc, actually, if you wouldn't mind, actually obviously representing Centrica and one of the big organizations in this, and your role in terms of innovation and scouting, as I understand it. What's COVID done to that kind of process of you looking in the market to try and find those innovative businesses and maybe bring them into your wider business in terms of Centrica as part of that energy transition? Has that been accelerated, halted? Tell us a little bit about what's been going on with Centrica.
Sure. So being an energy supplier, what COVID had impacted basically was a huge drop in demand. About 20 to 25% of the demand coming from commercial and industrial clients. So you have less revenues, and then you also have an increase in net debt. In bad debt from customers simply stopping to pay, and obviously you need to continue supplying them energy and gases. It's an ethical and legal requirement. So so the fact that you have a corporate that starts shaking on top of you creates a lot of noise, or a lot of as Freerk was saying, a lot of uncertainty about what they can be focusing on now. So we've seen a transition of the corporation very focused on the short term, trying to understand what it all means for the future of the company, of our clients, of our footprint, and then having, let's say, I would say, less attention span for innovation. But at the same time, as we're coming out of at least the first wave of COVID, we then see the corporate understanding the value that innovation has once you're able to kind of like feel like you're not drowning, and then be able to look ahead, being able to look 4 or 5 years in the road. So I think from them it's been most about, there are two things that they really care about in growth, and we are the channel to market, and one of them is e-mobility, and the other one is home energy management. So we're trying to help present companies in this particular space, which the corporate has already at least accelerated the acceptance that this is something they need to be doing, and that's a positive effect for us.
Yeah. But if I was just to summarize maybe what you were just saying there, I mean that effectively there's a kind of a COVID there's been the initial kind of respond to the situation, which is kind of obviously a major crisis. And there's a second phase which seems to be coming now, which is about the rebuild, which is basically one of the new opportunities. Where do we need to be? And at the moment you're in the transition to that situation. Is that a fair reflection of where?
Yeah,
what you're
yeah. I think you've put it more eloquently than me. Yes, it is. It is that.
Yeah, thank you. Alexander, what would you like to add about in terms of how quickly this kind of we're switching from this respond to, let's say, this kind of, we use this phrase build back better has become very kind of much used, but what do you think, Alexander, in terms of actually how quickly that transition's happening now, and maybe unplugging the capital to let it flow into new opportunities? I think you're still on mute, Alexander.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. We are focused on energy transition startups, and from my point of view, pretty all of our portfolio companies feel better than before crisis, because they predict a lot of new clients and already signed a lot of new clients for energy transition technologies such as IT for energy, for example. Also, a few of our companies received, for example, future fund money, governmental support. But it's no key key factors for surviving and for future development. From our point of view, crisis have an impact for efficiency of the startups much better than it was before. Mostly companies who have a big part of products in software have significant benefits from remote work and from lockdowns also. For us, it was a bit strange, but we are happy to see it.
Yeah, great, thank you. And Thomas, what would you add to this? About the transition taking place, and when are we going to see capital unblock and freeing more free, do you think?
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of interesting things have been mentioned. So first thing I want to say is I think it's a great time for climate change, energy tech, e-mobility focused startups, companies, and funds. I think everyone's seen Amazon's new climate change focused fund, $2 billion, released a couple of days ago. I think Chris Sacca, one of the legendary VC investors, just launched Lower Carbon Capital next to the Lowercase Capital, a super successful fund. And there's been a new fundraise, I think last week in Europe, a fund called Pale Blue Dot, raised about 60 to 100 million, totally climate change focused fund. So it's a resurgence. Someone mentioned from the panelists, Cleantech 1.0, that just destroyed a lot of money, was investing in very high capex, very time intensive startups. Nothing worked out. All the investors lost tons of money. Sort of everyone shied away from the space for a decade plus. I think we're seeing a second resurgence. I think there's many more startups focusing on software, so not so capex intensive, with lower sales cycles actually, and actually seeing some of the exits. We've seen Zonen last year. We've seen tons of exits in the mobility. We just was on a panel just 2 hours ago with BMW I Ventures folks. They had 2 exits in a month. One is Mapillary, which sold to Facebook, and also a huge $1 billion exit of Moovit, Israeli-based company, to Intel. So a lot of space there. We're very happy to be in this space. Very bullish on this space and excited about what Alex mentioned, that all the impact was positive and stuff. I am quite bearish on COVID. I think we're gonna see a lot of second and third degree effects. I think we haven't seen the worst. Starting from the public markets, which are way overvalued, stupid in my opinion, and the worst is to come. And it's a lot of indications on that. When retail investors and Robinhood app go and make money, then you're in trouble. And from from the other side, some of our companies did well. The ones operating in the last mile food space, in the delivery space, sure, it was great. I have to be honest, some of the companies lost some of the very important contracts. They've been delayed. Cities cut the budget, corporates cut the budget. So I think on the balance, it definitely impacted every single company, and the balance kind of balanced out to be okay for us. If I was a VC fund working on travel companies, tourism companies, retailers, say I would be, it would be a shit show for me, but we quite like it to be in this space. So it's okay, but I think worst is to come, in my opinion. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe we hope you're wrong, but I can see why you would think that. Let me put it to the panel now then, in terms of, we kind of seen that there's enough capital there, as you said, Tomas, about basically the recent raises that you mentioned about Amazon creating a new £2 billion fund, about Breakthrough Ventures. So, and so there's lots of examples of plenty of capital here. It's deployment. And I suppose my question to the panel here would be, in which areas do we see this? So is it going to be in renewables? Is it going to be in things like battery technology, energy efficiency? Is it going to be in other areas like kind of new nuclear? So where do we think that we're going to see capital most deployed, where we're going to get the best returns, the most opportunities? Does anybody want to kind of have a view on that, in terms of which parts of the energy kind of system we're going to see most investment? Fernando? I can very quickly, just a few thoughts. I think EV charging space together with electric vehicles is super hot. There's a lot of investment from the utilities, corporates, and a lot of M&A activity, which brings more capital, so more startups, because they've seen success. We're very focused on the mobility markets in general. I think, with the proliferation of electric bikes, e-scooters, new modes of transport, especially post-pandemic, and a lot of cities investing billions of dollars into new, bike lanes, and controlling that infrastructure is, going to require a lot of investment and success. And we've seen tons of exits like Mapillary or Move It lately. So again, that's very hot topic for us. Right. So mobility and EVs are something that you think. And any other thoughts about which are going to be the hot sectors, about where capital is going to flow into?
I will not talk in terms of where capital is going to be allocated, but where needs are coming from. So for sure, renewables is a must. For sure, electrification in terms of value-added products and services for end customers. And end customers means B2C, B2B, and B2G, in which governments, municipalities, cities play a major role. So anything that is related to this, plus the digitalization of all assets and all the operations, that's a must for the industry. So in a nutshell, these are the needs where this innovation needs to go.
I'd like to add that the flexibility and the logistics of energy are changing rapidly. In my mind, the key area for looking for the right investments is in that domain, which is completely digitally enabled, of course, because it's totally information driven, but managing demand and supply and storage. And making our grids capable of dealing with that. Also an exchange between electricity systems and, well, molecule or thermal systems that need to get connected and are working together more. That's where we see the most potential.
Yeah. So the kind of interfaces between those different things, between the grid, batteries, and different things. Yeah. Okay. What about in the US? Maybe Ernst, maybe you could give us a view about which of these sectors do you think are going to become hottest as we go through this transition?
Sure, I echo a lot of the earlier comments. The most promising investment prospects are maybe in enterprise software, where there are known playbooks and more capital light strategies. But we've also seen, we've also seen a return to the attraction of hard tech investing in recent months. So there's this new wave of, in particular, green hydrogen, seasonal storage, maybe next generation nuclear and geothermal. And that does require, in my personal view, larger funds and longer timelines. So things like the Amazon Fund, different EU pools of capital, Breakthrough Energy Ventures, and several others are, and private equity firms going down, I guess, upstream into earlier stage, are funding the kind of deals that since 2006 or 7, nobody was willing to touch with a pole. And hopefully that's because the fundamental science has improved and the cost curve has come down. So I think you see this bifurcation of software, classic Silicon Valley, SaaS cloud type investment, and then also a return to more science and materials based investment.
Yeah, yeah. And do you see that being basically kind of like, the question is really not really the capital that's available, it's just kind of coming out of COVID, and then basically the risk appetite is there now that technology is much better, Ernst?
That's a good question. I think it's probably more the latter. It's the coincidence of the cost curve and the technology arriving, while there's also this pent up frustration and desire to solve bigger problems, which is probably enhanced by COVID, just seeing the systems level problems that we have as a society, and that big ideas and big programs might be needed to address them and start addressing them early. So whether those end up being good financial investments yet, I don't know, but it's great to see them going.
Yeah. Good answer. Rob, what do you think that obviously that smaller scale?
Yeah.
What areas do you think are going to be focused on in terms of that energy system?
So I definitely think I'm sort of only qualified to make a comment on a small part of that. We've been working a lot in mobility, and we're seeing a shift in a lot of it to people are now much more conscientious about contact and how they move and how they get from place to place. So from mass transit systems, support for, now we're down to sort of micro systems where a lot more bikes and scooters, because of the shift in people's attitude and how they choose to commute and how cities are making those changes. And some of the speakers actually just made reference to that. Several of the speakers before me made reference to that. As a society, COVID is causing us to make certain shifts towards spike, to more open and outside eating. And what we're seeing now in mobility is that a shift to investment in things that facilitate this new reality, that you probably don't want to stand in a tightly packed bus with 70 other people. And it's might be like that for a long time. So we're seeing a shift to this more of micromobility. Bikes are hard to buy. I don't mean to say anything, but bike stores in the San Francisco area, a lot of them are sold out. That's not something that's been common in the past. So what we've been looking at, and where we're choosing and where we're seeing the shift for us, and it's only a very small part of what some of the other speakers have seen, but specifically we've been working with mobility companies, is a shift to this micromobility, is a shift to a scooter versus a bus.
Yeah, and I think there may be one thing that the funds have missed maybe is in the past around energy in particular, is that basically a change in behavior, like humanizing energy, if you want to call it that, is basically now actually kind of coming through and impacting on investment decisions. I mean, just as
I agree. And and I'm going to agree, in the past, clean energy has been so a non-starter issue for a lot of investors. And I've also noticed that the memory has fallen away. Almost no one I speak to actually remembers what happened 10 years ago, which I think it's kind of weird, but a good thing, right? I mean, I'm old, so I remember it, but lots of others don't. So, but it gets people to be more hopeful in their investments. Hopefully not as foolish, and I'm going to agree with the other speakers, they're in more lower cap investments, but that bifurcation that he talked about, we're also seeing that. We're not at the high end. We're not in the large cap stuff. We're only in the small, but we're definitely seeing that bifurcation with a lot more small software investments. Agreed.
So let me ask somebody younger, Kostas. You can give us.
I just wanted to add.
Kostas, you are younger.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on that from us as an investor, it's also very important to take into consideration the government stance on the matter. And it's true that whatever we said here, it's accurate. And of course, the future is clean energy and renewables. And we see, particularly in Europe, there are a lot of initiatives throughout the European Union and specific regulations that provide motivation to investors to pour capital to this kind of investment, which is very important for us and facilitates our play. It's very crucial because in such sensitive industries, if you are not aware of the regulation, you can really destroy your IRR and your and your investment. Remember the clean tech disaster 10 years ago. So
I remember the Lime scooters in San Francisco, which also had that problem.
Yeah. So it's very important. Whatever we said here is totally correct. I totally agree with everyone. So I just want to underline, it's very important for as an investor to check out the regulation and the government's policy in industries specifically such as energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What incentives they say, taxation, incentives for investors, etc. Everything, FDIs, etc. Everything.
So let me just pick up on that point, actually, Kostas, in terms of actually one of the things that COVID has obviously brought about is basically massive government spending that we've never seen before. And obviously, particularly in Europe, where there's a 750 billion euro fund, which is basically to try and kickstart the economies in Europe, has been very much said that it's going to be green investments that are going to do that. I just wondered if we can get some views on the panel, which is basically that, A, do they see that actually that investment made by government will go into green kind of projects? And if it does go into green projects, will that help kind of reduce kind of risk and therefore improve kind of basically investors' appetite to kind of get on the back of some of this stuff? So will basically government kind of funding really kind of act as a catalyst to kind of make it easier to invest? And any views on that? Marc, would you take a view from a Centrica kind of point of view on, or
No,
just
I don't.
view and?
No, I don't really have a view on this. And I'm Spanish, and the regulation in Spain did a lot of damage for clean tech when suddenly it just overruled the incentives that they had put at one point. So I'm initially wary of government incentives, but I'm not qualified. I haven't read enough about this about this new support.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I try?
Yeah.
I think the general sense is that recovering from the current crisis and preempting the next one involves a lot of green technology, and to a large degree, a lot of technology is there and a lot of capital is there to make it work. Governments are seeing this and play a role, but they can easily get in the way by trying to regulate it too much and to structure it, or to wave from one or move from one way to the other. So I think we need to understand the underlying mechanisms, which are also cultural. I think people also democratically demand more resilience in our supply systems. And that is a deeper sentiment that will drive change in behavior, change in consumer attitude, also in change in investment, which will also influence governments, I'm sure. And there are a lot of pieces of the puzzle, also regulatory wise, in place or in development, that can really enable that transition to accelerate much faster than we envisaged.
Yeah. So we've got about 5 minutes, a bit more, maybe just around 5 minutes left. So let's just have some kind of closing views from the panel on what next. I mean, Freerk's kind of, in a sense, kind of open that up a little bit in terms of talking about the change in consumer attitudes, change in government attitudes that we're seeing. So what comes next in terms of energy investment? What do people think about? Will this be something over the next kind of 6, 12, 18 months that we see a lot of capital flowing into kind of energy systems, partly due to the kind of resilience that's required, that I think people demand, but also the kind of climate issues. What comes next? So who would like to talk and give the views on what happens next? Rob?
I was going to say, I have maybe a very small point. Where there's money, it's going to get spent. We just saw, and a bunch of the other speakers mentioned, there's a bunch of new funds. They've now taken the burden. They have to spend that money in some ways because they have to get the return. So I'm going to say, actually, the success of those funds is an easy way for me to forecast success of those investments. Basically, I know coming down the pipe, those funds are going to be spending for various reasons. So in my opinion, I see a significant rise against the backdrop of what some of the other speakers mentioned. It's going to be tough though. The evaluation process, the agreement with the founders, that same valuation problem mentioned by the other speakers. But overall, I expect actually a shift to increasing spending over the next few years, just because the money is there. The funds have funding, and that's going to generate the investments.
Okay. Anybody take a different view for what Rob just said there? Basically, that the money is there and it will get spent. It might be tough, but I think that's his sentiment, is that you know, the capital will get deployed. Thomas, what's your view?
Yeah, I like to add a few things. So you know, there's a big macro view. I think a few things to sort of look at is, in my opinion, Tesla. To look at what else they do, I think they just finally got approval for utility license in the UK. So it's not like they just revolutionized the electric cars and the batteries, but also will do a lot of other things, including virtual power plants and so on. So I think they are a very interesting thing to look at. I think, you know, we should track how Nikola Motors goes on and helps with the, you know, hydrogen fuel cell semi trucks, or it's just more of a sort of Ponzi scheme. Also, I think 8th of July, there's a big announcement from one of the European bodies, maybe European Commission, on hydrogen. So it's going to be a huge new strategy on hydrogen, with a lot of money being spent on that space over the next 10 years or so. So we are super bullish on this. We have one investment in Israel on the technology. So I think this is someone to track.
Yeah, great.
Just one addition, guys. I would like to use my right as a host. Can you please add 2 seconds in your speech, like one habit that you gained during COVID that you will use that you didn't have before? And second, what has changed in your investment process due to COVID, which you will also not change? For example, virtual data room, like really quick, if applicable.
So one personal and one business thing, Helena.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that. The habit I picked up is sleeping 8 hours a day, and to the extent possible, I'll try to keep that up.
Okay, I'm jealous.
Yeah. I guess I have a long commute, so it's helping. I don't have to commute. And the one thing maybe we picked up is about well, I think just COVID showed how many of the meetings and how many of our face-to-face sometimes communication is not as necessary, or it's not as critical for taking robust decisions, particularly in the investment. Sometimes video call will do, and documentation and reviewing documentation. The technology is there for it to do it effectively. So I look forward to keeping that up.
Would you invest in a company you never met?
Yeah. I wouldn't have a problem with that. Yeah. But I will, obviously, you just triple check. I mean, you know, you check with companies' house, you check with clients, check with you. Anyways, due diligence will show any potential anomaly.
I think mostly people in big cities have a very important habit for our subject. You know, 21 days, people need to create a new habits. And now people have a habit to see a clear sky. In London, in Amsterdam, in Moscow, in Berlin, everywhere. And I believe it will have a big influence for policy in nearest future.
I just gonna add, I love what Alex just said. Yeah, I think it's a huge thing. I think folks have seen the clear skies, and you know they loved it, and it's something that's gonna hopefully stay as a habit in their heads. Another thing, professional, I think we're gonna do as a fund. We didn't used to have so many sort of deal flow calls with other funds, which we're doing now. Very sort of, as we sit at home, we do it so often, and I think we're gonna try to keep that as a habit.
Can I connect to that? We as Rockstart have decided to become a remote first company. So we're closing our office. We've experimented during COVID with all the interventions that we do with early stage startups and founders. and investors, and we found ways to create engagement and learning effects with using online tools. So that's going to be a big shift. And my personal habit, which I took up, is reading books, like real books, you know, back again and going offline rather than being online on the screen all the time. So that's something I want to keep up.
Great. Kostas?
Yeah, on the personal habit side, I would say I became more disciplined when it comes to discussions like that, because you can understand if everyone speaks on the same time as in real-time meetings, and when the connection is bad or you have laggings in audio, it can create a chaos. So we have learned, I think, to become more disciplined when participating in virtual meetings. And on the business side, we have learned to always be prepared for a disaster scenario and have a plan B in place, because as they say, hope is not a strategy. You have to really strive for the best, but have a plan B in place, ready to be activated in case things go bad. So, and we ask that from our portfolio companies. Actually, every time we ask for a budget revision, we also ask for a plan B based on specific parameters that will get worse.
So, Fernando, are you having 8 hours sleep?
Not really, but what I'm doing is I'm taking advantage of the commuted time. I'm not doing right now to do some exercise. So that's the habit I have now, you know, doing exercise on a daily basis. I hope to continue doing that when I need to go back to commuting. So I'll see how to manage that. From the business perspective, what we have realized is that there were some face-to-face meetings we used to have with startups before engaging with them, and now we are moving completely virtual. So we've been able to continue doing the scouting, to continue doing the meeting, and to continue starting the projects with the startups. More than 40 projects that we have launched already this year. So I think it is something we're going to continue doing. We are going to doing these virtual meetings, much less traveling, much less expenditure, not only for us, but also for the startups. So I think we'll continue that trend.
Yeah, great.
I'd add, yeah, a lot of biking, but maybe a hybrid work personal one, trying to be much more thoughtful and deliberate about physically making stationary work healthier. So whether it's ergonomic keyboard and mouse, kind of the blue light protection glasses, comfortable headphones, back support in the seat, with how much time all of us spend just sitting at a desk and not even getting around to commute and travel, it's just important to take care of yourself and your team physically, even if the work is all feeling digital. Yeah,
great. Well, I think we're just about out of time, Elena, but I just want to thank everybody. I think it's been an absolutely fantastic discussion today, and really appreciate everybody's time and their views and being very candid about where things are at the present time. I just got one final thing today, which is when we have a Zoom call, you always got to give the award to the best bookcase behind the person. I think, Fernando, you probably just get it this time, so many congratulations. Elena, I'll pass it back to you.
Chris, yes, and I want to hear your habit as well.
Well, I try and kind of chair more Zoom calls. That's what my personal thing is. No, I think I would say, like Fernando, I tried to do a lot more exercise since lockdown, and also read quite a lot. In terms of professional stuff, I think that it's just shown that basically how much you can do in terms of actually digital, and that's not going to go away, because all those times when you're kind of chasing around between airports and things like that, it's not a great use of time. So this has been a great use of time today, and thank you, Elena, for facilitating and setting up. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. And our panel is over now, and we'll start doing pitching. Guys, I hope you all received this course sheet. We would be very grateful if you can fill it in for our startups. And let's move.
Elena. So, no, I just wanted to say I need to jump off. As we had discussed, I need to jump off because I need to go to the airport. But anyways, it was a pleasure to meet everyone here, and best of luck with the pitching.
Okay.
Thanks, Marc.
Same here. I need to stay for a few more minutes, but I need to move on. So see you all. Great to be in this panel.
Okay, good. Thank you, guys. Okay, so the first startup is Empower Africa. Manuel, I'm promoting you to panelist.
Quick question. Do you wanted scoring, but it doesn't indicate 1 to 5, 1 to 10, comment? What do you want on that sheet in the boxes?
Yeah, you just put your score. Like, for example, if you find that this team is strong, or like what is the fit of the project to your portfolio? You can put 1 to no fit and 10 to the best fit you met ever in your life.
So 1 to 10, where 10 is the best. Okay.
Manuel, are you here? Manuel? Okay.
Hey, can you hear me now? I was on mute.
Yes.
Excellent. Can you also see me?
Yes. Can I ask you guys to use timer while pitching so that I don't interrupt him?
Of course. Okay, perfect. Excellent. Hey, good morning to the ones in the US. Good evening to most of the others. I'm Manuel. I'm Zurich-based. I'm co-founder and CEO of Empower Ventures. Let me just share my screen. Let me do that in a second. Perfect. Can you see my screen just quickly?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Yes, sorry.
Perfect. Okay, excellent. So globally, let me just kick off. So globally, about 1 billion people do not have access to electricity, but there are many more millions of households and enterprises in emerging markets, and particularly in Africa, that are connected to the electricity grid, but are experiencing power outages on a regular basis and are therefore either dependent on diesel gensets or kerosene lanterns. So this means significant economic losses. African businesses lose up to 31% of their sales due to power outages, and households or SMEs are dependent on expensive and dirty kerosene lanterns or diesel generators. So this under-electrification is a huge problem, but also at the same time represents a huge business opportunity. So we have created a B2B ecosystem, or as we like to call it, a platform in which we enable local resellers in Africa to deploy solar energy to their customers. So we combine our expertise with the expertise of our local partners, and we not only supply solar power, but go beyond power and supply energy efficient appliances, agri-tech products, and productive use appliances. In addition to the product supply, it was clear from the early stages of Empower that financing is key to unlock the full potential of solar energy in emerging markets, and particularly in Africa. But that means risk. Hence, a core focus of Empower must be and is the management of the associated risk, particularly that end users, households or SMEs, fail to pay. That is why we believe that managing credit default and developing a credit scoring scheme is so important. So the market potential is vast and is estimated to be a $70 billion opportunity in Africa alone. However, only a fraction of on-grid and off-grid, the market potential of on-grid and off-grid in Africa is captured so far. And we're just what I would call at the beginning of this decentralized energy revolution. So in order to succeed and scale solar energy in Africa, we work with local partners, enable them to scale and deploy solar systems to households and SMEs. So our offer to our local partners is a platform that is based on the following 3 pillars. First, we provide them with solar, electronic, and productive use appliances. Second, we offer them our software and data solution, which digitizes operations and increases efficient processes and reduces, for example, inventory management costs. And third, we offer financing, which includes, on the one hand, inventory financing, on the other hand, a consumer financing solution to the end user on a so-called lease-to-own basis up to 36 months. So this means that the end user now can pay for the system in monthly installment. And once paid, the system is transferred into the ownership of the end user. So the benefits to our local partners are straightforward. So this is Irene, the managing director of one of our local partners. She's able to increase her customer base, enter into a new business segment, and offer a financing solution to her customer. Our revenues are driven by the sale of our hardware, And that's what you see here are the unit economics of one of our standard solar bundles. In the future, our vision is also to expand our revenue streams. This is a quick hello from the team. My background is in finance and solar energy. In particular, I've been developing and financing large-scale solar projects in West Africa. I'm also joined by Michael, a co-founder, who is our COO and a development expert having experience in Kenya and Mali. And Greg, third co-founder, he's a financing expert and he's our CFO. Alejandro is the first person, and he's really the brain child behind our software data solution. Below, you see the 3 country managers in the markets that we're operating in. We're currently spread around 3 continents, based in Zurich and Madrid, operations in Zambia, Togo, and Cameroon, and we have a sourcing manager, logistics manager who's based in Shenzhen. So key to Empower is really the fact that we combine finance and technology. So let me recap and highlight what I mean. We digitize operations. That means payment flows, customer relationship management, order, logistics management, and we gain access to end user energy data and payment behavior through our software. We, for example, create virtual IDs of each end user, develop credit profiles, and in the very end, build up a credit scoring scheme for our end users with the goal to mitigate risk. And last but not least, we will reach more customers by expanding financing access to previously unbanked clients. So let me talk briefly about our traction. We started in Zambia in early 2018, entered into Cameroon roughly 9 months later, and Togo roughly 6 months later. Since incorporation, December 2017, we generated more than 600,000 in revenues for more than 2,000 end users. We raised 3 million, of which 1.5 million is in debt for working capital financing. I'm also pretty proud what we've achieved in terms of partnerships. We closed a number of strategic partnerships, including, let me just highlight 3, with South Pole, Barry Calibo, one of the largest buyers of cocoa beans. We are running a project in Cameroon. We secured a TA facility from one of the world's largest impact funds called Responsibility, also very active in the energy access sector. I'm done.
Good.
We have, let me just finish. We have ambitious plans. We're finalizing our financing round and are always looking for corporate partnerships with basically European or Western European or African-based companies. And of course, we're open for investment. So come talk to us, reach out to me if you're interested to invest, partner, or if you simply want to learn more. Thank you very much.
Questions? Any questions to Manuel?
Hello, Manuel. This is Fernando. Congratulations for the project and the presentation. Any plans to go into other markets, such as Latin America, for instance?
So yes, absolutely. I mean, our business model is set up in such a way that we can easily, I would say easily, I mean, it's always a tricky word, but move into other continents as well. We've proven that we can actually enter into where we have managed to enter into 3 markets. We're currently in the process of entering into Botswana. We're looking into Ghana as our next market. And yes, we have actually already received a few interests from Latin America, absolutely. And it's for us, it's just a timing, it's timing and an issue of focus. But the answer is a clear yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Manuel.
Thank you.
And we have a new project, which is Earl Power. Niladri, I'm moving you to panelists. Are you with us? Niladri, where is he? Niladri, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? You can't see me yet. Let's fix that. There we are. Hi all.
Yes. Hi.
Okay, I am sharing and let's whiz through. So yeah, it's not L power, it's actually Eagle power, but that's because we got subbed in just a few hours ago. So great opportunity, and we're all very grateful to be here. So hopefully we can cover some fun stuff. So let's jump in. I'm the director and head of European partnerships, actually for Climate Connect, which was the company that came up with the idea, or our idea, but one fortunate thing that happened is even in the COVID situation, we were able to negotiate the exit of our India entity. So our thinking has changed a bit, and this has now become a fully standalone project of which Climate Connect will be the technology provider. So just checking, has the screen changed? I'm going to assume that's a yes.
Yes, yes, your screen has changed.
Right, so what's the problem, as has already been mentioned on by some previous panelists, power prices are still high to the end consumer, and that shouldn't be the case. There's a lot of value that's left unlocked in the value chain. What I'm about to describe isn't really radical new thinking, but it's more a case of who gets to the market and does it first. I should say we're seeking 1 million to complete a seed funding round. We have an existing NY-based VC who will be anchoring it. Okay, and we're focusing on Texas because it's probably got the best market dynamics, but GB would also be a good viable first market. So moving on. Right, just summarizing again, currently suppliers, it's a very competitive market, margins are thin, consumer prices remain higher than they should be. You've got lots of factors on grids like renewables where there should be value that can be shared back to the consumer, but currently it's not. So we can see ways of unlocking a lot of value through AI and ML. So that would be looking at market trends and taking smart meter data. That would be optimizing internal retailer operations, using good forecasting of load and market activity to get better power procurement. And then finally, the key thing is a dedicated platform to reduce customer acquisition costs, which is another area with huge amounts of value that can be unlocked. In terms of market opportunity, looking at Texas first because it's big and also mature, so relatively stable. This is indicative of the value. Right, and at the risk of confusing you all, where the Climate Connect piece comes back in is the bits in green, which is weather forecasting, generation forecasting, load forecasting, and markets forecasting already exist, and this is what we did before. We've seen that the key focus now should be on the end services, so that customer acquisition platform and customer engagement and relationship management. Going through, these are some indicative projections, and this would actually be whether Texas or across Texas and the other 14 liberalized states of the US. And we think that's quite conservative. Just to give an indication of what the other markets are. So it's kind of a global scope. So I think it shows that we're being conservative if we can get it right. And with maybe, 10, 20 seconds left, summary of the key points. I apologize if that was a very blasted through deck. Had just a couple of hours to prepare. So I'm going to open it up to questions now.
Thank you. I will share the deck. Is rather small size. Maybe you need to
No, I've
run
just, damn. I shared just the screen instead of the...
No worries. I will share the deck with the panelists. Any questions?
So who's the direct customer you're targeting?
It's going to be the end consumer.
And what's the revenue model with them? Are they paying you a fixed fee or a percent of savings, or how does that work?
So the idea would be to partner with an existing supplier who, when we do have relationships, and then we refurb them from the inside out. So we will be taking revenue directly from the end consumer in partnership with the retail supplier.
Got it. Thank you.
No more questions. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
panelists. I'm sorry, I made a mistake in the name of the startup. So in my sheet, it's called Earl Power. Somehow it's Eagle Power. Thank you. Sorry for inconvenience. Our next startup is Aguardio. Tomas, I'm making you a panelist. Can you please stop screen sharing?
Yes.
Okay. Tomas?
Yes, I'm here. So I'm
Great.
just gonna
Please
share my screen. Okay. So hopefully you should be able to see it all by now, I guess.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, so so my name is Thomas Munk, and I am the CEO and co-founder of Aguardio. So hang on, sorry about that. So why Aguardio? Well, we are currently facing a water and energy crisis around the world. We see day zero alike challenges in cities like London, Miami, Bangalore, Cairo in Egypt. So we ask ourselves the question, what if we were able to come up with a solution that encourage, motivate people to change their behavior and thereby reduce their time under the shower, let's say with 1 minute or more. Does it make sense at all? Well, to begin with, you will start saving 10 liters of water approximately. But what is equally important to say here is that you will actually also save what is equals turning on a 60-watt light bulbs in 6 hours of energy saving just by reducing your time under the shower with 1 minute. Now let's put it up in a greater scale. Let's say we were able to encourage every hotel guest visiting Copenhagen in 2018 by having them to reduce their time under the shower with 1 minute. What would be the impact? Well, the numbers speak for itself. First of all, you will save a lot of water, energy, but you will actually also reduce quite a significant amount of CO2. And this is based on Danish district heating. Now, what is it that we have what is Aguardio? Aguardio is a solution installed independently of the water and energy installation. It connects with the cloud independently of Wi-Fi. It uses unique sensors that enable us to identify now there is a person in the shower cabinet, now the water is running. And by doing this, we thereby encourage, motivate, or even guide people in a predictable direction. We can also, Aguardio can also work as more than just a change in sustainable behavior. It can act as a gateway for other sensors that need to send data to a cloud. Aguardio, as I said, is more than just a physical device. It collects data, not on an independent level. We look for patterns. I'll give you a good example. In a hotel setting, we were able to identify that it was actually only every 5th person that turned off the water when using shampoo by just adding in some shampoo bottles saying, stop the water while using me. We were able to encourage people to change their behavior. That's how we use data. We can also, in the data, see if there is a bathroom that is in the risk zone of having mold to appear. We are currently developing a small clamp-on sensor that will be added onto the pipe that goes into the toilet, which enable us to identify leaking toilets, which we know is a huge challenge in housing associations. What is equally important is that, first of all, you have the environmental benefits, but you also need to have an attractive business case. This is from an actual case where we are installed at a hotel in San Francisco, the Hotel Spiro. And here we have now documented that we have a return on investment less than 1.5 years. I will also add that the Aguardio has been tested and verified by both Surrey University and Cranfield University in the UK. So where do we differentiate? Because there's numerous of solutions out in the market that is trying to address the same challenge, you could say. Aguardio differentiates it from being a very user-friendly and easy to install and replace solution. Again, we are installed independently of the water and energy installation. And that's very important, especially when you're addressing hotels or housing associations. You don't need to call a plumber or an electrician to have the Aguadio installer, even to have it to go online. We use gentle push rather than behavioral design. And then we are obviously also price competitive. This is the team. It's a strong team, consists of 4 people. We have Christian, who is our IT guy. Myself, I come from the energy sector. I've been working with huge utilities like Vattenfall, that's where I met my co-founder, Nilsana. So we have a history in the energy sector. We work closely with Surrey University, IBM, and in Danish context, an institute called Ernst Institute. So to sum it all up, become an Aguadian today and start go slow on the journey.
That's perfect.
I think that was more or less my time.
Perfect. Questions?
Maybe the presentation said it all.
No questions? Okay.
You have a apologies if I missed it, a channel partner strategy that's particularly important to the business growth? Are you?
Yes, we have distributors in the Nordics and one in Spain, and we are in negotiation with one in California at the moment. So we're addressing the B2B market via distributors, or already addressing the hospitality or the housing association market.
Just a question, what is the cost of your device to be installed?
So the cost is 95 euros, and then you pay a subscription fee of 1.5 euro per month. And we have done deals with these figures. So having even a subscription-based business model is still attractive from a hotel perspective. We're still able to achieve a return on investment of less than 2 years. In a housing association, you can rely on even longer return on investments, and still be very attractive.
Mm-hmm.
And just by adding up it all, we have traction now, both in Europe and in the US. We have done deals in the hospitality sector, which obviously has been caused by the COVID pandemic. So we have now been doing deals, especially in the housing association and student accommodations in the UK. So we have gained traction now. Okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Thomas. So our next project is DV Gas. Andre, are you with us?
Yep, hello. Thanks for, I'll share my screen right now. Can jump right at it. So first of all, I'm in Singapore, so it is currently 1:30 a.m. So apologies if I look a little tired, but
we don't see you.
One second.
We do. Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
we do.
We're seeing your screen, so you look great.
Sharing the wrong screen now.
You look great.
I'm sharing the wrong screen though. 1 second. It's weird. Sorry, give me a second. Did it close my? Okay. Well, apparently sharing the screen crashed my Chrome, which is great.
It all worked during rehearsal, right? That's exactly that.
Well, and that's a classic.
No worries.
Classic. I had it full screen, waiting and everything. Okay, so I'm pulling it up.
You have time. No, we have one project disappearing, so we'll take his time.
Okay,
I don't know.
cool. I'm coming
one
back.
Somehow it didn't show, so we have time.
Okay. Sharing my screen again. It's not full screen. That way it. There you go. All right.
Just to let you know what we see, we see both the slide as well as the slide sorter on the left side of the screen.
Yeah, I'm about to, thanks. Well, I mean, that's less important as long as the content's there. Right, y'all see this?
Yes, we can see the slides now.
Cool, great. All right, thanks. Sorry about that little mishap. All right, hi everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks for the talk earlier. My name's Andre Lorenzo. I'm in Singapore. I'm originally French. And this is DiviGas. So to set a little bit of context, so we work with hydrogen, but not the cars, or very tangentially. Hydrogen is actually this massive industry that people don't actually know very much about. It's overwhelmingly used in refining and gasoline, in fertilizer plants, and in chemical plants. And for every ton of hydrogen, of which there is 73 million tons generated every year, there's 9 tons of CO2 generated, which means that about 44% of all industrial emissions in the world are actually generated from hydrogen. Now, in the hydrogen generation process, the technology used to separate the hydrogen generated from other gases actually has about 15% inefficiency, as in 15% of the hydrogen gets stuck with other gases and is too expensive or too complicated to remove. Now that represents about $16 billion lost and about 99 million tons per year. The reason why they don't recuperate those 15% is because there's too much acid gas, CO2, hydrogen sulfides, or the stream is too hot, or the equipment's too expensive to do it. So we created a membrane. Membranes have existed for quite a while now, but my co-founder has spent 10 years on research engineering a new polymer membrane, that is that fiber on the right, that we fit inside of these stainless steel tube on the left. And this membrane fiber especially has very specific properties. So it is very efficient and it reduces the price, but I almost want to say that matters much less than the other arguments, which is that it takes temperature up to 150 degrees and it's completely immune to acid gas, CO2 and hydrogen sulfides, which creates a lot new application. So I'm not going to go through this at all, but there's 6 major applications that we've already figured out. We're a relatively new company. We incorporated in November 2019. But there's already 6 major applications where we've interviewed refinery operators and the like, and we found these very specific places where there's no alternative at all today. And this membrane essentially can create massive economic savings. So we have 2 LOIs right now with industrial clients. One of them is in a power to gas system, which is in hydrogen generation for storing renewable energy. And the other one is in nylon plants. I'm going to spend just a second on that. These are 9 plants in China, which represents about 25% of the nylon 6 market today. And the clients themselves have been looking for our product for years because their plant runs at 150 degrees Celsius, and they have about 60% of hydrogen that they buy that they just release or burn for local energy, and it's a huge waste of money. But cooling down the gas, separating it, and reheating it to feed it back into the process doesn't make an economic sense. And so Air Product, for example, I'd given a quote, but their membrane could only go as high as 50 degrees Celsius, which destroyed the economics. So the client told us if we can actually run at 150 degrees Celsius, we'd save about $3.8 million per year on a 10-year basis. That's $38 million. And we'd be willing to pay you $13 million, which we didn't negotiate yet, and whatever. We're at the LOI pilot stage right now. So right now we're actually manufacturing these pilots to ship to them. They're going to receive them and the data in the next month or 2. The point is to raise as soon as they've received them and confirm, okay, this works as intended. We're going to start a little bit ahead, but the point is to convert or close the round when that happens, and to build an industrial scale factory to ship that out. These will be supplier deals, so the membrane degrades over time, so we'll ship them something to set up. And every year or 2 years, depending on the feed conditions, we'll ship them new cartridges that they'll replace. Our team's very small. We're still very lean right now. 2 of my colleagues come from NUS, which is a leading national university in Singapore, which is a leading university in the world for membrane science and polymer science. And my colleague Zach is from ExxonMobil and has had almost a decade's worth of experience in sales for industrial processes and the like. So yeah, we're DiviGuess. We're based in Singapore, and that's pretty much it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Questions? We have a silent panel this time.
What is the immediate product that you're commercializing right now? And maybe I'm being slow, but I wasn't sure if you're
That's fine. That's fine.
Sending the cartridge or building plants or licensing the technology. I know what the IP is, but how are you productizing the IP, I guess?
So the IP is actually in the manufacturing process of the membrane fiber. And so what we sell is what I just put back on screen. I think it's still up. So we sell skids, which have these tubes, and inside of them are the fibers. And we sell the whole system as a customized package for plants. And that can be before the plant is designed, or it can be actually during a maintenance upgrade. It's actually easy. It's one of those things that you don't need a greenfield setup, or that's an industry term, but you can basically just upgrade a plant with it if you have a gas stream that right now you are not optimizing, and you can start just recovering a lot of your hydrogen that you're just burning or releasing. So we sell the skid with the tubes, with the membrane in it, and then we show up with a resupplying of that equipment.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. At any time, so you know, like one of the angles that right now we're really going after is that there's a lot of funds that are deploying in the like climate change. I think we've all heard a lot of the news in that sense, and I've only started ever so slightly to talk about how much CO2 we can remove from the atmosphere, but you know, the entire market for us is about, you know, is very significant amount of the total amount, industrial amount. So I'm looking for these funds. If you are or know anything about them, I'd love to have an intro to that specifically. And I'm going to be doing a little world tour to Europe, in the US, COVID allowing, probably September, October. So that's it. That's going to be my piece. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Andre. So we were supposed to have one more project, but somehow it didn't show up. So I guess we are done. Let me see. Maybe there is.
Actually, two ones, Elena.
No, that's. Yes, basically the last one is actually Africa project, because they have the different corporate emails, so I saw that there too, but basically we're supposed to have one more. But I will send you the pitching deck of all the projects, including the one that didn't show up, and the ones that had pitches today. And if you would like any introductions or have questions to the project, I will be happy to connect you with them, and happy to send you more good projects upon request if you want in the energy field. Thank you very much for participation. The panel was very interesting, and see you soon. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.